Today we're going to talk about the Apache Indians. There were two major groups of Apache that lived in Texas. One was the Mescalero, who lived in this area, and the other was the Lipan that lived in this area. It can sometimes be confusing to talk about these groups, since even among those larger groups there were still small bands. Each small band was led by its own chief. This was really confusing for other people who moved into Texas. For example, if you moved into Texas from America and moved close to the Lipan Apache, you might think that you were making a peace treaty with the entire Lipan Apache group. However, you might have only been making a peace treaty with one small band within the group. And that really caused a lot of trouble when other people moved into this area. Stop the video now and shade this part of your map. When studying the Apache history, there are two major divisions. The first is before Comanche and horses arrived in Texas. The Comanche didn't move in to Texas until about the same time the Spanish explorers came to Texas and brought horses. So before they came, the Apache lived on the plains and hunted buffalo on foot. That was very dangerous because buffalo are very large and strong and fast. To do that, what they usually did was to work together as a group to herd the buffalo over a cliff. And that helped ensure that they killed enough buffalo to eat and survive, but also that they didn't get hurt during the hunt. But before Comanche and horses, most Apache lived what we call a semi-nomadic life, which means that they did move from place to place, excuse me, but they didn't move quite as often because it was a lot of trouble to move their house from place to place. And during this time, they probably didn't build as large of teepees as they did later when they had horses. We also believe that they were farmers during this time. Most historians believe that they grew small crops and hunted buffalo. After the Comanche and horses came to Texas, the Apache were forced to move to new lands to escape the Comanche. However, with the introduction of horses, their lifestyle became much easier. For one, it became much easier to hunt buffalo. For another, it became easier to transport larger homes. So at this time, we know that most of these Indians were using larger teepees because they could pull them using the horses. Most of the time when we study Apache, students in my class immediately ask about Geronimo. There's been so many stories told about Geronimo. These are pictures of Geronimo and his men. One of the things that I learned during my study of the Apache had to do with the hairstyle of Apache and his friends. Most of the time, the Apache men grew their hair very long. But when you look at this picture, you see Geronimo has his hair cut off very short. And you can look and see that most of these men look like they have cut their hair as well, or at least one side of it. And the reason for that was to show that they were grieving or mourning the loss of a family member. Geronimo lost his mother, his wife, and his 3 children in an attack by the Mexican army. He spent much of the rest of his life fighting the Mexican army and later the American army. If you have time this week and next week, I have a website where you can investigate and learn more about the life of Geronimo. But to start, just notice that in most of the pictures that you'll see of him, you'll see that he has his hair cut very short, and that's the reason why. I have a different assignment for you today. You've already shaded in the regions where they lived. You've already drawn a picture, and all of the things that you wrote in the Kiowa box really apply to the lifestyle of the Apache box as well. So what I'd like for you to do today is in this box, Write 2 things that you learned about in this video about the Apache that you want to remember.